Today I'd like to talk about calendars. Now, in my last video I touched briefly on the topic of calendars. We have had so many different calendars in the West over the past 2,000 years. And in this video I want to discuss some of them and how they operate and why calendars are important. Firstly, calendars are important because, well, they measure time. That's pretty obvious, right? But why is that important? Well, hopefully as we go on it will become clearer why calendars and the measurement of time is so important. For instance, the word calendar derives from the word calens, which was in the Roman world the day the new moon was first sighted. The word calend itself comes from a very old Proto-Indo-European word, kale or kele. I think there's different variations on how it can be pronounced, and kale means, which is spelled K-E-L-E, means to shout or to proclaim or to call out or to clear. It has the same root as the word cockerel, and obviously, as we know, cockerels announce the new day. So the calend, the day of the new moon, is a day when a new cycle began for the ancients. Now, to the ancients, the measurement of time meant being able to utilise the cosmic and earth forces that were active at any one time and use them to enhance their own lives. Many of our most ancient calendars were lunisolar. That is, they work with the cycles of both the moon and the sun together, which meant that the calendars invoked what is known as the marriage of the sun and the moon. Whenever and wherever this marriage is activated, it creates a charge of energy, a bit like a battery, as the masculine as well as feminine forces of the universe are being harnessed and handled. They flow. It is this charge which creates electricity, an animating force. So when we work with the sun in conjunction with the moon cycles, we are filling our endeavours with life force. We can do this in our own bodies, but by using calendars, we can also align our sacred battery, that is our bodies, to be charged up by the cosmic forces in play and live within the current time. This is what living in the now truly is about. But to live in the now, you have to also be aware of the forces and cycles of time. It's a classic divine paradox. You have to be aligned with the cycles of time and then kind of forget about them so that you can be in the now, which means that you know instinctively what to do and where to go next. So in that way, using calendars creates the best field for us to operate in. Now, probably two of the most famous calendars in the world currently are the Julian calendar and the Gregorian calendar. The Gregorian is the calendar we use now. The Julian calendar preceded it. Official history tells us that the Julian calendar was devised by Julius Caesar. It's most interesting to me that Caesar, emperor and commander of the entire Roman Empire, would take the time and trouble to devote to devising a calendar. I'm sure that the actual legwork of it was done by his astrologers, but the fact that he cared to name it after himself indicates just how seriously measuring time was taken by our forebears. The Julian calendar is still in use today in most of the Christian Orthodox world. It is a solar calendar divided into 365 days with a leap year every 4 years. In many ways it is similar to our modern Gregorian one, and it replaced an older calendar, the Roman calendar, which was actually based on Greek calendars. The Roman calendar was still lunisolar to an extent, in that the phases of the moon were still observed. For example, the calends marked the first day of the month, which was marked by the new moon, the start of each lunar phase. And as I said, it is this word where calendar derives from. So we do have some echoes of the lunisolar calendar still in how we measure time today, albeit a faint one. Now, religious rites accompanied the calends, with people being called to the Curia Calabria, which was basically some sort of astronomy sighting station, which I know sounds grandiose, but that probably would have meant some kind of hilltop or mound where you could see the stars better than anywhere else locally. And people would be called there on the first sighting of the new moon. Now, similarly, the Etruscans would also do the same kind of thing. They would gather in the town square during the nones, which was about a week after the new moon. It's not quite the middle of the month, but sort of getting on for that, about a week or 9 days after the new moon. And the king's messenger would announce what the holy days would be for that month and the things that they would be doing. So it seems to me that from very ancient times, our forebears used the moon cycles as an effective way of keeping divine and heavenly order here on earth. So why do we not have a purely lunar calendar then? Well, lunar calendars mean that in our northern climes we would rotate out of the seasons pretty quickly. If any of you observe or keep track of the Islamic festivals such as Ramadan, you'll notice that they can take place at any point of the year, as Muslims follow a lunar calendar. Up here in the northern hemisphere, a solar calendar is very practical for growing crops and making sure we can grow enough food to last our harsh and icy winters. So the solar calendar is a useful tool to ground us into the earth and her growing cycles in the more temperate climates. Incidentally, the old Roman calendar was technically suspended during the winter. Now this is an interesting idea to me, as if during winter we enter into not only a time of hibernation but timelessness almost, because there was no calendar. However, to know when to get back on track would still have involved some sort of measurement of the days. And it was out of this suspended period that the months of January and February came, because initially the Roman calendar only ran from March to December, which is why December was known as the 10th month. In the northern northern part of Europe, we had the Caligny calendar. That was the calendar that was in operation in the Celtic countries, and the runic calendar, which was tended to be in the Germanic countries, Scandinavia and those kinds of places. Now they were very advanced. The runic calendars even measured the Metonic cycle, which is the cycle of eclipses, and is 19 years long. So it's safe to say our forebears took time measurement very seriously. So I hope this explains a bit more why the lunisolar calendars were so important, and how without the lunar aspect we have an important piece of the puzzle missing. Solar calendars are an excellent tool for growth of anything. I like to time my yearly projects by the sun, and I've found so far that it works very well. I've found that often over the Yule period, and particularly around the beginning of January when people make their resolutions, they have an idea of what they would like to achieve that year. Many people don't succeed at this, as they expect the change to happen kind of immediately, rather than something that it's to develop over the space of a year, or at least 9 months up until harvest time. I've also noticed that around spring people often get a further nudge to work on these, not necessarily the resolutions, but the themes that came up during that time will also reappear around springtime. These resolutions don't have to be anything grandiose or earth-shattering. What matters is that it's meaningful for you. So it could be that you want to learn a new language, or take up a new hobby, or retake up an old one. And if you time that growth around the passage of the sun through the year, you'll find that the new shoots come up in the spring, so that's when you'll feel really motivated to start doing something. And then you're ready to look back on what you've achieved during September around harvest time. So you could have taken a course on photography, or completed a crochet project, or built a computer. It doesn't really matter the what. That's pretty much, it's not important, but the process is relevant because it's a creative one. And that ties into, which is maybe a topic for another video, a wider cycle to do with Jupiter, which is a growth cycle in and of itself, and that happens about every 12 years. So each solar year is a one step in this Jupiter growth cycle, basically. But again, that's going off topic a bit. Using the cycles of the moon in conjunction with these solar cycles can help you complete what you want to achieve for the year more efficiently. So for example, say you have an idea that you want to start up a new business in January and you don't really do anything about it, and then March kicks in with the sun going into Aries, and you think, oh, or as well the moon going into Aries, and you think, oh, actually I do really want to get this up and going. So with all the Aries in it, once the moon goes into Aries, there's lots of energy. It's time to hatch that egg, if you like, because it occurs around Easter, that you want to start it up, and Aries is a great time to start anything up. Then when the moon moves into Taurus, that's a good idea to get your finances in order, do any hard work, financial work, anything that needs growth. Taurus is a good time to do it. Gemini moon is a good month to go out and promote it, because Gemini rules networking, sociability, media, so it's a good time to promote whatever you've got to do. Cancer, when the moon's in Cancer, this is a powerful month because the moon is in its ruling sign of Cancer. I'm talking about new moons when I'm talking about this. That's a good new moon to take stock and listen to and respond and any feedback. And then Leo's a good month to really launch out into the public domain. Now I know this sounds very basic stuff, and again it is basic because obviously how it will affect you personally depends on your own natal chart, but I'm just talking incredibly generally. So like I said, it may sound basic, but these energies are available and yet even these basic principles, many of us never use them. So using the energies of that month that abound, that come in on that new moon, will really help give some wind in your sails in the area that you need to help you build your goals and dreams. Now the best way to get in touch with the lunar energy is via the week, and to a certain extent the days of the week, but by the week, because each week corresponds to a phase of the lunar cycle. So the first week after the new moon, it's a kind of building energy. It's very new, it's very fresh, and at the end of it we have the first half moon. So in a corresponding way we should begin to see something for our efforts. Now by the full moon, 2 weeks after the new moon, we should have accomplished most of the work for that month. The first fortnight in the lunar cycle has the growing energy behind it. After the full moon, the work should entail more reflection and integration, and then in the last week releasing that energy so the next energy can build. So this lunar energy operates in waves, really like the sea. I would really recommend taking the reflection part seriously too. We live in a very active and busy world with not much downtime, and downtime tends to be discouraged and seen as something that's, I don't know, unnecessary or just not something to be encouraged basically. But use that waning moon because it's very important. It will give you that reflection, and just spending time within will give you the insights necessary to carry your projects forward. It's in that resting place that the new inspiration comes, and we don't allow for that new inspiration to come. So using that waning moon and that quiet time will give you the insights necessary to carry your projects forward, as well as allowing the next month's energy to build, and from that you will give you much more of an idea of what you need to do next. It's an important step and not one to skip over in my experience. Call it active reflection if you like. I would really recommend making time for it. So I hope this gives you a very brief and basic idea of why it is important to take note of calendars and why we need to live our lives by them. They provide a sense of cosmic order and harmony. They allow us to not get tossed around by the waves of time, but to utilise the waves of cosmic energies in operation and learn to surf them expertly. You can plan your whole life like this if you are so inclined. That's not to say that there isn't room for spontaneity and adventure. Making room for that in your life is essential, and that's kind of what the Sagittarian aspect of life is for. But again, that's another video. But keeping track of the lunar and solar cycles give you a general idea of what the conditions are for you on the field of your life. in your web of weird at any given time and how to use that to weave the life you want. Okay, so that's all I've got to talk about today. I really hope you liked the video. If you did, please think about like, sharing and subscribing down below. Thanks very much. I'll see you next time. Bye.